Can you hear me, Becky?
I can hear you perfectly.
Awesome.
I'm so sorry.
For what?
I was supposed to let you in early and...
Oh, that's okay. We figured it out. I'm good.
Okay.
Did everything go okay today?
Almost.
I'll be in tomorrow.
Yay. That's always very nice.
Melissa's not going to be here today, right, Becky? Or am I the wrong?
I think that was last week.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a special day. Oh, there's Melissa, see?
There she is.
Yeah.
Okay, what time is it? It is 5:30. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Shutesbury Selectboard to order. Today is January 17th, 2023, and this Selectboard meeting is being held via Zoom. And as usual, I will start with going through the agenda, and then we will start our meeting. So tonight, as always, we have public comment to lead off. We have minutes on here, but I don't believe we have these two.
No, Geneva got them done and I didn't get them reviewed.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to be doing the two sets of minutes that were listed on the agenda. We'll be going through the special town meeting warrant and just talking about the issues regarding the meeting on Thursday night. The work zone policy, I think we're going to skip over tonight. Melissa, is that right? Okay. Yeah. And then we have scheduled a discussion about the Massachusetts School Building Authority boiler, the invitation to replace the boiler at the elementary school, and that will involve, I believe, a vote by the select board. Is that correct, Becky?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have a cultural council grant where we'll be having a vote about accepting that grant. Then after that, DLTA, which is a division of local technical assistance. I made that up.
No, you got it.
Okay, I did. Okay. Possibilities, things that are going to be offered by FERCog that maybe the town could access. We have an appointment to the Board of Assessors, then a review of municipal vulnerability preparedness program, review of ideas, and then town administrator updates. Oh, I forgot the library designer. Where was that?
It was there twice.
Oh, okay. And then
that's the problem.
So we'll do the town administrator updates and then the library designer contract after that. We might move depending upon how much extra time we have, we might move the administrator updates earlier just to fill in. So we have a couple of things here that we're going to be skipping over this evening. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Any questions? Okay. So the first item on the agenda then is for public comment. So if you have a public comment, I ask that you use the raised hand feature and limit your comments to a couple of minutes. So Tom, I saw your hand first.
Hi, thank you. Good evening to all of you. I was just wondering, please, if there will be any time during tonight's meeting on the topic of the special town meeting to place any questions about any of the warrants there? Or will there not be any time then to have any public questions or comment?
Yeah, we are talking about the special town meeting Actually, it's the next topic. I guess depending upon the nature of the question, we might or might not engage in a discussion this evening. We might direct your question somewhere else. So let's just see what it is. You know, some of these articles are better addressed by the sponsors rather than the select board. So why don't we see what the nature of your question is? Yeah, we should have enough time, Tom, for a question or two. I just can't guarantee we have the answer for you.
Oh, that's cool. I just didn't know the right time to pose.
Sure, yeah, that would be the time.
Okay,
So,
thanks. I'll wait.
You're welcome. Susie.
Keep up. Okay, let's see. Hi. I wanted to thank the select board for the amount of work they do, because I was looking for some facts and I had to go through several meetings of several agendas and some meetings for minutes. And I find it astounding how much information your committee processes, and then that you stick to a process. And so I appreciate both of those components, because it makes a difference. And the finance committee benefits from seeing those processes in play. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, public comments? Actually, not questions. I answered a question. We don't typically do that during public comment, but since it was a pretty direct question, I broke my own rule. Any other public comments? Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we don't have minutes from November 22nd and January 3rd, so that will be done at the next select board meeting. But now is the time for us to go through the special town meeting, and there are a couple of things I think just procedurally that I wanted to kind of review tonight, and then talk about whether or not there are any specific questions that need to be addressed. But kind of format and procedure are at the top of my list. And Eric and Melissa, I want to give you the opportunity too, if there's anything regarding the special town meeting that's of particular concern. You guys can start.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want everything, Melissa? You want to go, or I'll go?
Go ahead. You may answer my question, but go ahead.
The two things I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that we were requesting people wear masks if they went to the strongest way we can recommend that, or ask it or whatever. Probably we should have some available there. I think that's in the plan from talking to Grace the other day. And the other thing I think we should ask people if they can test before. If again, we can ask, we can't require anybody to do it, as far as I know by law. I think we should request people. How do we do that? Town announce? I mean, I don't know that. I'll leave that to whoever, but that's what I think.
I concur with that recommendation. I was going to make the same one. So, so Becky, that, and Melissa, you agree?
Yeah.
So maybe if we're sending out maybe we can send out a town announce, both reminding people about the special town meeting, and asking people to please wear masks and to test before they come. It's obviously voluntary, right? But we'd strongly urge them to do it.
Yeah.
Becky, Donna, Nick Nickel, our town council, will be at the meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And Anything else that has come up? I know, and I see Miriam's hand raised here. I'll get to you in a second, Miriam. Miriam sent me some PowerPoint slides today, and I'm wondering if we're going to have that ability, that set up. I know it's, or should we have it done as a handout? I know the Conservation Commission was planning on having a handout, as was Kestrel.
I don't have, I haven't planned for it. It's going to be tricky. It means pulling down the screen, and the select board's going to be up on the stage. I guess Paul will Paul, I imagine you'll weigh in about whether you're going okay with having PowerPoints. Technically, it's going to be a big hassle. I'm not sure if we really need them, but I guess that's more between Miriam and Rita. Do you think you need them? I mean, we can figure out how to make it happen, but
And Miriam, it seemed that what you had prepared was pretty clear. I'm wondering if we could dispense with having the PowerPoint presentation, and if people have the handout, and if you want me to do the presentation, we're calling it the West Quabbin Woodlands. I'm happy to do that, but yeah, I'm hesitant on anything that's going to slow this meeting down.
Sure. Can I just throw in a couple comments?
Sure.
So I think that's fine if it's logistically too awkward to put a screen up. This is complicated, and you know, like my head spins sometimes when I'm trying to explain it. So I thought perhaps the PowerPoint might also just help you, Rita, also to kind of organize your thinking about how to present the timeline. I just wanted to capture some of the information. I think the things that people might have questions about are basically the timeline and how all of this fits together with these different grants, as well as, you know, the fact that there was a town meeting vote last spring, and now we're here having another town meeting vote, and we may have to have another town meeting vote at the annual town meeting around the parking area piece that may need to get revoted. I think it does need to get revoted, is what Donna has told us. So, you know, that may be confusing to people, as well as just, you know, kind of the budget and where all these different pieces come together. So, you know, I think if we're prepared to answer questions, if there are some, maybe there won't be any questions. I don't know.
You know, what was written is pretty clear. And I think, you know, I'm comfortable presenting an outline and then asking if there are questions, rather than like giving too much information, getting people more confused. Yeah. I think it's better if we just, you know, a broad outline of the around the acquisition, and then if there are questions specific to it, then that you be prepared, or if town meeting allows that. I know there are two people from Kestrel who are going to be there. Yeah. So I guess it's town meeting, Paul, yeah. Correct? That says if they can speak.
I'm prepared to answer. I'm prepared to answer any questions if there are any that need to be posed. Since we were the sponsors of the CPA application and we're managing the project on behalf of the town. And then if there's a question that we can't answer, then I would defer to Kestrel, but I think I have a pretty decent understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to get into all of the the legal details around the acquisition.
Please, I hope not. I hope not. And I'm going to, we're going to have flyers.
Okay.
Yeah. And a poster, which is just going to be a blow up of the flyer, the handout, and that Kestrel is bringing. I'll bring the flyers, and I'm putting it together a binder that'll be at the table with some of the documents that are on our website. So if people want to look at them, they'll be in a binder.
Okay. You know, maybe, I don't know if it makes sense in the town announce to put any links, Becky, if there's stuff up around both for the land acquisition as well as the solar bylaw, you know, so that people can come prepared, because we didn't send out that. This was such a fast turnaround. There wasn't time to send out you know, a lot of background information, but it would be great if people who are coming to the meeting are prepared. So
we have a whole subpage now with all sorts of information about the project. So if there's a way to send out a town announce with that link, that would be great.
Yeah, if you could forward it
Sure.
to me, and I'll share it with Grace as we work on the announcement.
Grace, I see your hand up.
Real quick, if any of the committees or the select board, Conscom, anybody has links they want me to add to the web page about the special town meeting, just email me those links and I will get them up there.
Okay, and we'll make sure to kind of reinforce for people as much as possible to preview the background information prior to the meeting. So Becky, do you think that, well, today's Tuesday, that town announce really needs to go out tomorrow morning?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. So that's the first two articles. Then we have the article on the solar bylaw, which I think there's been both a hearing and there's material up, but we should have a link to any of that. And then Article 4 is around money for the PFAS engineering and other technical work, the fire station, and Article 5, Ellen will be covering.
Right.
Susie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in with Becky and Grace. The FinCom will have a quorum of people there. They don't have to post a meeting for that, do they?
Susie, I saw your email, and I ended up posting for both the Select Board and Finance Committee at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
For the special town meeting, in case you guys have something you need to vote on or discuss. And then I put in, I think I added one other item after special town meeting. I put in the review Gale SES, which is, I don't know if we'll reach to that, and I might delete it, but there might be a proposal coming from Gale at SES. And unless the select board later tonight decides to have a January 24th meeting, it might be easiest just to look at that proposal after the special town meeting. And then, so I just put it in there.
Okay, just in terms of for a little further on the logistics, we're setting the select board will be set up on the stage, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then the mics and the seating and all that who will take care of that?
I spoke to Matt Foster at the school last Wednesday, and he said he was going to do the setup for us. And he told me to drop off the banner so he can get that up, and that he would set up the sound system for us. So I will go over in the afternoon. I should go over by noon before he leaves at 1 and see what it's like and make sure we have everything we need. And if we need to set up, I know that Miriam has requested a table for handouts. And I was thinking we need to get the planning board also copied. And I have a PFAS report. I could copy that as well, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, we're gonna have one big table for handouts right after people come in through check-in.
Okay.
And where will check-in be, Grace?
Check so people come in through the big doors by the kitchen, and checkout is right there when you come in through the big doors.
Okay, so there's only going to be one entry point, and that is by the kitchen.
Right.
So people
the
will
big
not be
doors by
coming
the
in.
kitchen, not the door from the kitchen, which is the small door.
Right, right.
But
The big doors by
doors.
the kitchen.
Right.
Okay. All right, and the other door will be locked.
No, because that's a good way for people to get out when
Okay.
they need to go to the bathroom during the meeting. So we're going to leave that open, but
I'm talking
closed.
about the entry door by the principal's office. Is that going to be open too?
Yeah, we need to open that.
Yeah.
Both those doors will be open, but you need to check in by the kitchen.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have plenty of signage to direct people to that.
Okay, great.
So you go through check-in, then we get to the handout table. I already have the handouts that planning board is going to be distributing. Miriam, if you want to bring your stuff either starting about 5:30, I'm going to be getting there around 5, but if you wanted to drop your stuff off earlier, or if you wanted to drop it off at town hall sometime tomorrow, I will bring it with me. Yeah, if we can get stuff about the PFAS stuff, that would be great. And I'm also going to have another table with masks and COVID tests. And, as usual, anything else I can think of to hand out, useful things, maybe some dog tag applications, put those out.
And what time, Becky, should the select board members be there? By 5:45 or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that work for you, Melissa?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
So
What else, Becky?
I have an issue I just want to talk through with Paul and Grace here. So I've gotten more than one. I'm getting a complaint about the meeting being held indoors when there's COVID in the air, or COVID has not just gone away. And I got one constructive suggestion of what people might be able to do if they had help from people inside. So that it's been suggested that if people who are immune compromised were in their vehicles outside, if they could be notified before a vote is taken, so they could come inside and vote. As you all are aware, we are unable to do a remote Zoom type town hall by the state. This is not something we're allowed to do, but we are trying to be responsible to all of our citizens. And I don't know if this method is manageable for the moderator or not. I've had a volunteer, the police chief said she would go outside and notify people. She's definitely a person people would notice. Is that something you guys, you could support doing that, Paul? I know that for me, the big problem is individuals would end up voting without having the benefit of hearing discussion or participating in discussion. But I don't know what else to do.
I'm not crazy about the idea, I guess. I'm wondering, I know in a lot of other towns have like overflow rooms where, they just have like a remote speaker so people can hear what's going on. Is that, I know it's kind of late, to set something like that up, but is that a possibility?
I guess my concern is you're putting a group of compromised people in even yet a smaller space by doing that and on the number of people there. I mean, it could get crowded. I just have no way of knowing, and I did try to think that option through, but I know the library at least one meeting was very full.
Well, that would make it even more cumbersome to, if we have multiple people, you know, for someone to be going around to a number of different vehicles, and then we got people coming in, you know, just before votes, and I don't know how Grace feels about that, making sure that everyone is duly registered, and so it's not ideal by any means.
From my perspective, just from keeping track, I'm going to have 3 people, and by the time the meeting is full swing, you can usually go down to having just one person do check-in. So I'm going to have 2 people who would be able to help out with that process if that was something we were going to do.
So each of these people would come in and register and then go back out to their vehicles. Is that what you envision, Becky?
No, I would imagine that they would register. Well, see, this is the other tricky part.
They would get checked in. They would go back to their cars and they would wait. We could give them something like an armband or something. We could give people, oh no, they get their ballots. That's how they prove they got checked in, because they get their ballot.
We are using ballots. We are going to have them. Okay.
Oh, that was one of my other questions. Are we expecting secret ballots?
No.
Okay.
Was there an answer to that?
We're using the ballot.
I'm saying no. Please.
Well, again, I'm not crazy about the idea.
I want to say we could do this. I have heard a lot of these same concerns. They're really legitimate concerns. And I don't think there is an ideal way. I don't think we have a really good answer here. Because town meeting really does demand in-person participation, that you are present there in the space at the time.
Great.
And it is also true that that's not safe for everybody. So I agree that it's not ideal. It's up to the moderator. I vaguely remember that town meeting time does sort of talk about letting people come in and out, but I cannot remember what it said. But I just normally from my perspective, I think I could handle it. At least from a checking in and checking out and stuff point of view.
Okay, I know there are a couple more comments, so I want to kind of keep this going and make some decisions here. My take is, you know, there are people who don't always listen to town meeting and they come in and they just vote, and we don't police that at all. So, you know, for us to say you have to be there to hear the whole discussion, I think we can assume that people will have done their, you know, research and reading ahead of time. So I don't know how we can enforce that. It's awkward, but I also don't want people to feel like they can't participate. So I'd say just bite the bullet. So I'm going to take a couple more comments and I'm just going to let the select board kind of wrap it up. So Miriam?
Yes, I appreciate everybody thinking this through. Given I have a family member who is immunocompromised. But one of my questions would be, is there any way to have a Zoom televised audio feed so that people waiting in their cars could sign on with their smartphones and listen? They wouldn't participate, but they could listen. That was question number one. Question number two was, I don't know. I think there is a state law about how long you're allowed to idle. And I don't know if that's an issue for the town, encouraging people to be idling their cars outside. I think it's 5 minutes. You're not allowed to idle for more than 5 minutes is what I think is state law. But anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Miriam. Elizabeth?
Thank you. Is it possible for the town meeting legal space to be expanded to the parking lot, and for Grace and her helpers to go out, and if there's someone who's holding their card up at that point, for them to be 6 feet apart, but on the sidewalk or something, and be counted and then go back into their car? Thank you for considering.
Okay. Paul?
A couple of things. One is this is going to create somewhat of a precedent, which I think we've got to be a little bit cautious about. You know, as much as I want to accommodate people with legitimate concerns, I'm concerned about the precedent. It's also going to add time to the meeting that we're already concerned about, you know, moving right along. You know, one possible option would maybe be to just flick lights or something when it's you know, outside lights when it's time for voting, so that we don't have to have someone going around to multiple cars and talking to people. So just give an indication somehow that everyone would see all at once and they can all come in immediately, if you choose to do this.
That's a good idea.
We can have some sort of signal set up.
Yeah, flashlights.
By the outer door. Yeah, exactly.
It just needs a couple of strong flashlights. I'm sure the police can come up with,
or fire department might have something.
Or the fire or the police car just put on the on the blue lights, right?
That would do it. If people don't run, they'll come into the meeting.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's no simple answer here, but we'll work on some way of notifying people, and I think make it clear if people are going to, you know, just come in for a vote, that they do it. We need to expedite that process, so we're not waiting 10 or 15 minutes for people to get in there, and we're holding up the entire meeting. So maybe there can be some allowance for people if you're, you know, compromise, that you can park kind of closer to we just make some reserved spaces in the front. You know, something we should think about that.
I think that's a good idea.
Rita, as you said, we have to get this message out in the morning, and the specifics of how we are going to do this have to be included in that email. Town announced, because all the you know, we need to reach out to all the public. It can't just be for a few. It's got to be
right.
The public.
So
we do need details.
So can you check with Kristen, maybe that in the morning before it goes out, and just say, this is how people who will reserve some parking spaces, and Kristen will do X in order to notify people that a vote is happening.
I like the police light idea in all seriousness. That certainly would catch people's attention.
Yeah.
She just has the car there. You can see the blue flashing lights.
Yeah, they're hard to miss.
Yeah, and she can park on the, you know, she can park right up by that one of our multiple sheds.
Right.
Okay, good. I understand. I mean, it's important to talk about this stuff. Paul, anything else?
Yeah, one final comment. I know there's, you know, a lot of people were expecting that there would be a vote at this special town meeting about the school roof. I don't want us to get diverted into a conversation about that or discussion about that during the meeting. So I thought maybe we could head that off by having a very brief announcement right at the beginning by either Becky or one of the select board members explaining why that's not happening right now. Is that possible?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I mean, the irony is we're within just a small window of having a proposal that we would have needed to do that. But, you know, it's 2 weeks after we had to post the other meeting. So I can give an update on the progress that Gail has made and where they're at.
Okay, thank you. I think that'd be very helpful.
Okay. Eric, Melissa, anything else about the special town meeting?
Becky, we have copies of the warrant for us, or should we print them off?
I'm gonna be emailing out, well, I'll have the motions printed for you at the meeting, and a full set of the warrant for you.
Tom, I'll take one quick question and then we're gonna move along.
Thanks. I just have never lived in a town until now as an adult that has a town meeting, so I'm still learning a few things about it. I appreciate it a lot. And I think I know the answer to my question now, but if I may just ask about Articles 1 and 2, I had some questions, but it appears that during town meeting, there will be time to ask the select board questions about its history or background or questions of that nature. Is that right? There will
Yes,
be time during the
there's
town meeting. Okay.
Yeah, and there is a lot of material that's been prepared by both the Conservation Commission and by Kestrel, and there'll be links available on the town announce to that material, so you should be able to.
Yeah, some of my questions didn't appear to be answered there, but I'll just throw an example question, and I'm not asking for the answer, but whether the time to ask it would be at the town meeting. Will this land generate tax revenue for the town if the articles are approved? That would be an example of a question I would have.
Right.
The land is going to be a question I could ask at town meeting.
I can answer you right now. The land is owned by the town, so no, we don't tax ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no tax revenue. But yeah, if you have any other questions,
that sort of question would be what I meant, and I didn't know if it was at this meeting or at the town meeting. I would ask it. I don't need to use up too much time.
Town meeting would be fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
Okay. Just double checking, Eric and Melissa, anything else about town meeting?
No, should be all set.
Okay, so we'll be there by 5:45 or 5:30. I'll try to get there 5:30.
I'll probably get there about 5:30 too, just meandering.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks everybody. So we are going to skip over the work zone policy for this evening and hope to do that at the next meeting. So the next item on the agenda is to talk about the boiler, the invitation that we got from the School Building Authority to apply for a grant to replace the boiler at the elementary school. And I know there's been a lot of discussion with the Finance Committee, and Becky, if you want to give us the summary of kind of where things stand.
Okay, and I'm glad that Susie's here representing the Finance Committee as well. So we had, so I brought the issue to the Finance Committee. The question being, did they recommend that the town continue pursuing the boiler grant from the MSBA invitation? And there was discussion by the Finance Committee about all the known elements that I could share, having met with the MSBA when they came to the school. And at that point in time, they had alluded that they were anticipating about $1 million project. When I asked how much money would have to be voted at a town meeting, because the first step in the process was that we would have to vote and secure design funding for the project of between $60,000 and $100,000. That's a required step for them. And if we had not gotten a negative recommendation from the Finance Committee, we would have been working in that direction. But the Finance Committee, in evaluating all the work we just completed this summer, $270,000 worth of work in the boiler room and all the valves around the school. We had replaced some pumps and a number of other elements in the boiler room. And then we learned that this $1 million potential project was restricted to the boiler room only. And in looking around at the components, I spoke to our engineer from Hessner who had just done the valves and all the other HVAC work we had done this summer. And he did not see that there could possibly be $1 million worth of work to do in the boiler room. So I shared that information with the finance committee. Bob Groves said that he really needed to speak with MSBA to understand what they had to offer and what the grant program was. So I set up a meeting with the MSBA, and Bob Groves and I met with their two main people who had come out this summer. Bob asked his questions, many the same as I just shared with you. He asked about the potential funding, when we would know that we got the grant. We wouldn't know if we got the grant until about a year from now, or at least late in the fall next year. After we went through the design program and were fully approved by the MSBA board. Considering the amount of money they were suggesting, the finance committee was really concerned. With $1 million, we could probably finish our roof, and to spend half of that money, put 500,000 plus the design work, put 600,000 towards this MSBA project, just didn't make any sense. So they voted against it. Susie, do you want to add?
Well, I think the other piece is that, you know, we know what we need. We need a roof. We talked about the boilers, and the offer from the state doesn't match our needs. So no, we don't need that. And we have to continue struggling on our own as far as the roof's concerned. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Eric, Melissa, any questions?
No.
No.
Do you need a vote? Do we need to vote on this?
I would appreciate it, just so I can let them know that
Officially, that we're turning down their offer?
And the select board both voted that the funding is not appropriate for our current condition situation.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to notify the MSBA that we are declining their offer to apply for boiler replacement at the elementary school?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. I think you can put a PS. If you want to give us that money for the roof, we'll take it.
Right. Good idea.
And we'd be happy with half of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It may be important to put in that notification that we really need that versus the boiler, just so they're aware of why.
Oh, they were aware.
Okay.
They brought extra people just to make sure we didn't talk about the roof.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. We had the contract for the library designer in this slot, but we're going to do that later because I believe that, is it the trustees are going to be joining us at 7:45 or 7:30?
Yes.
Okay.
And
All right.
the trustees, it's the library building committee.
Oh, it's library building committee. Okay. All right. Becky, do you want to do some of your updates now, and then we'll do the cultural council grant after that? Does that make sense?
Okay. Or how about we just keep going?
You want to just keep going? Okay. So there's nothing. I just want to make sure that if people were showing up for any of the other
then
items
I'll
on the
find now.
agenda. Well, probably I imagine not, except I think we can do the next three safely, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if somebody comes and says you didn't, then we can just review, go back.
Okay.
Okay. So the Cultural Council grant, are you going to present that, Becky?
Yes. You'll just give me a second. Well, it's going to take me more than a second so everybody can relax. Get a drink of water or something. Okay. Okay, why did this disappear? Okay, can everyone almost see that?
It's just half the page that's showing.
Here we go. All right. So the Cultural Council is a committee in town, and every year they get an allocation from the Mass Cultural Council. This year is $5,500, and they take applications from artists all over the area and the town, and divide out this money, and the library gets some of the funding, and as a result, we have a lot of programs in Shutesbury. So this is a grant being awarded, and then it requires the traditional state contract to be signed by the chair of the select board. And as you see here as well, the grant is for $5,500.
Becky, off the top of your head, who's on the Cultural Council?
Rory Valentine.
Okay.
I think she's the chair again.
Okay.
I
think we just appointed somebody, didn't we?
Yes.
In the last couple of meetings.
Was it Barbara Bigelow?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's fine. Do I hear a motion to accept this $5,500 grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council?
So moved.
Second, I just have one quick question. It looks like the contract manager's name is Melissa. Do we want that? Is that?
It was the person that
sure.
It's the person that was the chair at the time, the last one.
That's fine. Okay, I'm just asking if that's doesn't make any difference to me.
I don't need to have that, but if need be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded.
Second, yes.
Any further questions? Do we need to change this? Should it be Melissa that signs it, or should I sign it?
It should be the chair of the select board, I think, that signs it.
Yeah, and then
correct it.
Then we'll correct it, and then next year it'll come to Rita. So it's the lag time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. Okay. So the next is the DLTA offerings by Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Okay. So we have.
Can you explain first, Becky, what DLTA is and what we're?
So FERCOG runs on grant funding that they get from the state to manage grants for cities and towns. So these are, so every year they group a number of things that they have to offer. So I'm just going through it to show you. Climate change is, and energy and environment is the first category. Economic development and housing. Municipal and regional capacity building is the third one. And shared services of any kind. Conservation is on that list, and that's part of something Shutesbury's already been working on. And then transportation, zoning. And then they want you to rank your community's top 3 choices. And the culvert assessments are waiting list only. So they just want you to put your names in if that's something that you would like to be involved in.
We have to, do we have to do this tonight? Because this is kind of a long list of things that, when does it have to be submitted?
By the 27th. But they said if you have, like, we have a meeting on the 31st, we can tell them that we're meeting on the 31st and the select board is already gone through the offerings and they'll have their decision by then. We can do it that way.
I mean, this is just a really long list to make a decision tonight. And, you know, we in a little while, we're going to be talking about MVP. It just seems like we should be,
I think it's surprising, you know, some years the select board goes through it and some they don't. And some years it's gone much faster than you would think. I think it's, you know, like community economic development is a very rare, we rarely delve into community economic development and housing, unfortunately. Right now, energy is a really hot topic in the town. I don't know, it's up to you, Rita. What would you like to do?
Well, I'm gonna first turn to Eric and Melissa. How much, maybe I should ask first, how much money are we talking about?
Well, see, this does not equate to money.
Yeah, it's just time.
Yeah, they're just asking what topics is the town needing or in search of. So they're just trying to get a sense of what our town's focus is at this point in time. And then they're trying to provide a technical support that matches what we're trying to accomplish.
But do they equate one of these things with hours? I mean, is it, or do we just say, we want help with, you know, culverts, and they would say, okay, we'll give you help with culverts, and that's.
Well, see, this is not as direct or straightforward. I think there was a time where we did this diligently every year for 3 years and there was never any grant funding of anything we requested. It's a hit or miss.
I see. So they're asking what we want, and then they're going to tell us later whether or not there's any money for it.
Yeah.
I think it's also just kind of a, you know, they're trying to take a survey of what the towns need, right, to hone their own goals too, a little bit. Right, Becky, is what I remember from past years when we've looked at it. So it's kind of also telling them, kind of helping them guide things for other communities and us, and, you know, for them to make decisions without just pulling it out of the air, I guess, too.
And I found it just when we have a need, letting them know what it is, and then they dig in and find out if they can service it, like the open space plan. I know Miriam has her hand up. She's been working with them on a regional conservation agent. Well, not just Miriam, but a number of towns are involved looking at that issue. So it's not as complicated. It's not as big of a decision as you might think it is. It's just giving them ideas, and we only can give 3 at the end of the survey. So it's up to you how you want to handle it.
I want to hear from Melissa or Eric if you have thoughts.
Well, I'm wondering if do we have the access to? I mean, I'm thinking like I would like to download it, print it, look at it, and I could pick my 3. You know, we could just we could do this in the future. I would think it's a lot to do here to me for just on the off the cuff basically.
Okay. I'd like time to be able to look at it more closely than on a large screen.
Right.
Can I make a request?
Yeah. Yes, Miriam, go ahead.
I would just like to ask that perhaps when these request forms are distributed, that they get shared with committee chairs, because I think ECAC would have an interest in having looked at this to advise the select board. And I imagine the Conservation Commission might be interested in sharing our thoughts about priorities as well. I can't speak for other boards, but without having really thought through this list.
Yeah, fortunately, I think for us at this point, Miriam, there's been a lot of work done with regard to MVP. So at least, we know those priorities, but the other items, I need more time. I can't do this right now. I don't even know what's on this list. And I'd like to do it in the context of the MVP discussion too, kind of see where that is going to go. So Becky, if you will forward this to the board members, and then I will not be at the next meeting, but I will forward to you my top 3, and then Eric and Melissa can take it from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Miriam, did you have one more comment?
Yeah, could I just get a copy of that? Because I'm interested. Becky, could you forward me a copy of it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. So next we have appointment to the Board of Assessors, and George Arvanitis, I believe, name has been put forward. Was he going to come this evening, Becky? Or?
He can't get here tonight.
So his name has been put forward to be to fill one of the positions on the Board of Assessors.
Yeah, I might be able to get him here in a little bit if you could take him a little later.
Does anybody feel like they need George to come? I mean, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, I've been on a committee with George for years.
Yeah,
I've known him since I was a teenager.
There you go. See,
I think we're good. He doesn't need an introduction. So
we've all worked with him in an official capacity at least once or twice.
Yeah, I would be perfectly comfortable with voting for him without talking to him, if he's crazy enough to want to do it.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to appoint George Arvanitis to the Board of Assessors?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Barrel, aye. Okay, so the remaining items on the agenda are the town administrator updates, MVP review of ideas, and the library designer. So why don't we, we have some time. Peggy, do you want to go ahead and do the town administrator report, and then we could take a break?
Sounds good.
That Eric and Melissa,
That's
does
fine,
that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we do that, and then if we take a break, you can put something up on the screen if somebody signs in that just says the meeting is still happening. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I'll create a quick sign while we're talking.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Melissa, bailed me out. Like, hold it for 15 minutes. I can sit here.
Okay, so Becky, you have the floor.
Okay, so two major things have been happened last week. So for months, I know all the select board members are aware that I've been trying to get Gale Associates, the engineers for the asphalt section of the school roof, to come to Shutesbury and do their evaluation of the Shutesbury Elementary School roof. Well, finally, this Wednesday, they forged ahead. We did have snow on the roof, but we're able to work around it. There was at least a section that they could do a full cutting into the asphalt roof, where they had to take samples to see if there's any asbestos within the core. They not only did this to the outer asphalt roof, from within the attic, we pulled back some insulation. And what you see there is the old school roof with the little pebbles stuck in the tar. So they also did a cutting into that service and took a sample where they will test for asbestos. The engineers came out. There was a team of 3 from Gale Engineering. They worked on the roof, determining where the samples needed to be taken. And then they worked in the attic space, where they explored the insulation and the structure of the upper roof. Shutesbury's design was to put the new roof over the old roof in the areas where the building footprint was. The building is larger, so on most of the edges, the rafters extend out into a new space where it isn't double, where it's only a single layer of roofing. So they did that. They explored the insulation throughout the building, seeing where there are patches, like was discovered this summer, of insulation that is not fully secured the way it needs to be. And because the plastic on top of the insulation has blown free, it's not insulating. In some of the areas. There were many areas where in the hallways where above, if you take the soundboard, the flip up boards back and peek up there, you have sheetrock. The insulation has a layer of sheetrock holding it in place. Those areas are all good. So we have different things happening in the building that they explored. The engineers were on the roof quite a bit, and then they took a drone and flew over the building and took pictures of areas that they couldn't see from the ground or from when they were on the roof because of the snow. So they did quite a lot of exploring. I had a quick email from the head engineer today. They reviewed all the new information that was gained in a meeting today, and we'll be hearing from him in the next couple of days as they strategize the best steps forward for the project. And we might even have a little more information that I can share at the special town meeting. But unfortunately, we didn't have, we're only at this point, but this point is very doable for construction in the beginning, when school closes in the summer. So that's the goal, to have engineering completed for annual town meeting, so we can not just engineering done by the end of March, so they can go out to bid. So we will have a bid in place to vote at our annual town meeting and schedule construction for the summer. The other issue that happened, there was activity on during the week, was our 60-day deadline on an IRA report on PFAS was due.
Becky, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were ending there. Can I just ask you one question on the school roof? So I just wanted to make sure people understood that the Gale Associates work ended up getting really divided into two parts, correct? We voted at annual town meeting, $60,000 to get the engineering done for the school roof replacement. And Gale Engineering suggested that this first part be done where they did this kind of exploration, right? And then the next, the balance, the actual engineering part is what comes next. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we spent some money for them just to do this, make these holes in the roof and do their climbing around and their droning. And then there'll be, the next step is the actual engineering work. And are they saying that it can be, they think it can be completed by the end of March? Is that realistic?
They sent over, yes, they sent over a proposal with a timeline of how they could accomplish all the tasks involved. There likely will be an amendment to their first outline now that they have all the detailed information and are reviewing it. They sent the original timeline before they came out on Wednesday. Because I was inquiring, we have this deadline, we need to get this work done, and I want to make sure they stayed on track and that we didn't lose another month or 3 months like we just did because of the weather. We have to stay on track. And this part was I think it was $12,000. We will be paying the $2,000 of it directly to ATC, who is the company that does the asbestos analysis. So we pay them directly. So in total, it's $12,000 from the 60.
Eric, Melissa, do you have questions?
No.
So my only other question is, if this took them a really long time, so this has been months because we voted this at annual town meeting, do we really trust that they're gonna, I don't know why it took them so long, because the weather only got worse to get up on that roof. Do we trust that they can in fact, complete the engineering by the end of March?
Yes, I believe so. The hang up was they were trying to accommodate the school's request that they come on Wednesday because they had to traipse around the school so much, and especially with the drone activity around, we didn't want that around children. So the weather was horrible. It was uncanny how many Wednesdays just got wiped out. And then when we cleared, their whole company was on holiday over the Christmas week. So it was just like one blockade after another, but they're a very reputable firm. Jeff Quackenbush has worked with them through UMass. And when they zero in, they zero in. And now that they have the information, they're zeroing in.
Thank you. Eric, Melissa, any other questions?
The only question I would have is, I guess I sort of mentioned it before, is there any chance that any of this engineering would make sure the roof can accept the weight of solar? Does it matter that it does or not?
Good question.
Well, if you're not putting solar there, it doesn't matter. I have not heard anybody saying they want to put solar there. The ECAC was on site. Graham Sefton was at the school. He was evaluating pole mounted solar at a site where there's actually sunlight. The roof itself is, the building is surrounded by trees that give constant shade and account for the, patchy, not moss growing on the roof. So it's not an ideal site. And I think Graham had done enough research to figure that out. But he tends not to support roof mounted solar anyway. But the old energy committee had already dismissed the roof of that building because of the trees being so tall, and none of them are on town property. They're all on abutting neighbors' property. So it's kind of, there is a 2.5 kilowatt system on the building now. And one of the questions will be what to do with it. It was put up, I think, in 2006 or 7, one of the very earliest. I think that size array would probably be about 10 kilowatts. So I think that will come down and not go back up on the roof. So if we move forward, I'm sure we could find out if, make sure it would support solar, but it's not being advised.
I do have one more question. So for the additional, if we need additional money, we had the 60,000. If we need additional money for the engineering, what's the expectation about where would we use ARPA money for that, or go to finance committee, or?
Unfortunately, with a small special town meeting dates being what they are, we can't use that avenue unless we set another special town meeting. I think number one, it would, if it's a very small amount of money, finance committee reserve is very possible. If it's a bit more, we'd probably turn to ARPA.
But we should know soon, you think? Okay.
I'm hoping to know by the end of the week, and that's why I tacked on that topic to the select board part of the meeting, posted for Thursday night.
Okay. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, that got to be longer, but I think it's important.
No, that's wonderful. I really appreciate the questions. So I'm going to go to a different topic. Is that okay?
PFAS. Yes.
Yes, PFAS. So the deadline for our IRA, it was today, a deadline that we made. So we have submitted a 103 and a 105, a 103 BWSC form to DEP, which is a notification of release. It's basically pro forma. It's just saying that we have hired the Ty and Bond as our LSP and are taking responsibility for the situation. And then we submitted the 105 BWSC, and that is the write-up on the PFAS that I forwarded to you all today, the final version. It's a 5-page summary and narrative that describes the history going back 2 years to when UMass first started their study upon the elevated test results that were received by UMass. UMass contacted DEP, and DEP came out and started testing and getting involved in the PFAS discovered around town, focusing in on the fire station as the highest numbers were coming from the fire station. So in this effort, so the report just goes over the history, everything we've done, and then they review a proposal of what they believe are the actions we need to take in the next year or two. And this is when we get to the mapping, which identifies the areas where we have PFAS around the fire station by lot, and they're color coded yellow for under 20. I'm sorry, green is non-detect, the lowest level, then it's yellow for under 20, and red is used for over 20. We have six sites currently that are over 20 that we are actively involved in. And then the plan will be to go back and retest all the houses and expand the search so that we're going out 500 feet from each place where any PFAS reading was gained or not gained. I mean, where each PFAS was noted. So if PFAS is noted here in Town Hall, which it is, then they go out 500 feet from here.
Every direction?
Yes. So let me put the map up for you. That might help. Would you guys like to see the map?
Yes, please.
That's not the old map.
Miriam, what's your question?
Hi, Rita. While you're on this topic, I was actually just going to send you an email, but I just wanted to let you know and remind the select board that part of the fire station lot is in the buffer zone of some jurisdictional wetlands, and environmental testing within the buffer zone is not an exempt activity under the bylaw. So I think I just encourage you to review this with your LSP and then loop back to us about what the plans are for permitting.
Okay, thank you.
Hey.
I thought it was the opposite, Miriam.
Yeah,
that environmental testing was exempt within the buffer zone.
It's exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act, but the Shutesbury Wetland Protection Bylaw does not have that exemption.
Okay, so we have. Well, I guess they can get more expensive then. Okay, draft. Oh. Sorry, there's now we have a much better map than we had before. This one is, you can see. So the work that the what that was done by the state was much more localized. Well, I guess not that much more localized. So they, much of what we've already done, but we didn't go, see all the things outlined in green, yellow, red, and purple have been tested. So the difference between purple and red, purple is for eminent hazard IH, it's over 90 parts per trillion. And the red is between 20 and 90 parts per trillion. So what we will be doing is we will be testing all these homes on Wendell Road that haven't been tested before. We won't be testing the library, but we will be testing down to 21 and 34 Cooleyville Road. And then over on the Leverett Road end, we're going down as far as 135, Leverett Road 128, Leverett Road, Pelham Hill 15, and 23 Pelham Hill, which are all new. Anything on Pelham Hill Road was not tested before, but that's because of this reading at this, I think it's 113 Leverett Road had a reading. A low level reading of 2.37. And that's creating all the need for testing down here. So that's the area that we will be testing. The other change is moving poets into the homes, any homes that test over, that are not non-detects, that are 20 or below. We'll get poets installed. That again is the point of entry testing. Point of entry testing will be done, or treatment, sorry, point of entry treatment. So we will be installing a lot more filters. We will be strengthening, doubling the filters that are currently in the five areas with imminent hazard levels. Rita, I think Frank has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Frank, go ahead, and then I want to have the select board.
That's all I want to know. I don't know what the map is. Is the town commons part of is going to be tested? I'm just thinking in the future, we were looking into using the well on the town commons for the library's bathroom, future bathroom, the old library's future bathroom. So that's what my question is for you, Becky.
Okay, I think we will be sure to test it. It's not pinpointed there because it doesn't match with we don't own the church. Okay, I'll put that on the list to test. That will add to the testing area.
Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification, is the fire department what's in red there?
Yes. No.
No.
Red is actually under 90 and more than 20. So the fire station is in purple right here at
okay,
highest number 165. Yeah. So there's about 50 tests that have to be taken. And then if we don't install the single poets into the homes that are under 20, the other option is to provide bottled water to those households indefinitely. And in a quick calculation, we will be higher than the $1,500 to install the single units, the single poets very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say that is very quickly, depending on how much is used in each house.
Yeah, and I had up to 8 gallons a week in one home I was doing earlier. So it can get very expensive.
It's like $10 a bottle or something like that right now, right, Becky?
I think it's 12.
$12. Okay.
But if you have, yeah, that's almost $100 for a household if they need 8 per week. Most are less than that, 3 to 4 a week, but still, we do not know what the end game is here at this point. So I think it's best to try to reduce the long-term costs as much as we can.
We've gone into much deeper discussion than I anticipated. We have about 5 more minutes before we have the MVP agenda item come up. So thank you, Becky. This is actually very helpful. And is there anything else for town administrator report that you want to?
The only thing I wanted to make sure you knew is that we have installed the new generator at the fire station. So if we have the power go out, we will be in good hands with the fire department.
Okay. Great.
I just have one really quick question. With regard to the tie and bond report there, what is an IRA report? What's IRA stand for?
An incident response action.
Okay, cool.
So
Thanks.
the report itself is you outline what steps you will be taking to satisfy this. In their notice of responsibility, they required quarterly testing, which I think we will be required to do the first year and hopefully put together reports and patterns of activity. And hopefully after that, we can reduce the testing to be less frequent and save a lot of money if it's at a safe point to do that.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So Becky, just while we're on this, signatures for tomorrow, the Mass Cultural Council, I need to sign. Anything else that the other select board members need to be available?
We have warrants. The warrants need to get signed, and we'll have, potentially there might be another contract.
Appointment letter, Geneva, do you think that will be ready tomorrow or no? Okay. All right. Okay. So everybody should come in. Yeah.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Rita, actually, we have this situation in attempting to have everything together for the closing on the 25th for the Kestrel Trust, that the check for, there's going to be a special check run on Friday, so you don't have to come in until Friday, because that way we can capture that extra check run instead of you having to come back again.
Okay, but the Mass Cultural Council had to be in by the 20th, so probably good to get that signed.
Yes. Yes.
Today is what? Today is the 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to make sure we're getting it all done. Okay. Great. So I see Michael DeCara is here and Miriam's here. Anybody else that we're expecting about the MVP discussion?
Well, we posted as an ECAC, but until there's 4 people, we don't have a meeting. So I'll interrupt you if 2 other people show up.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk now for a little bit about just a reminder for people, or reminder for those of us who were here at the last meeting, and for folks who were not, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program is opening up starting, I think it's Friday, right? to take inquiries from communities who are interested in applying for MVP funds. And these are funds that are made available by the state. We applied last year, and it's basically to address things that make us more climate resilient. And we did apply for funding last year and did not receive it. And this year we have the opportunity again to apply. And it's kind of a two-step process. And the first step in the process is that the MVP staff will discuss what communities are interested in. And I believe, the first date that they said is they'd like to hear from January 30th, but the kind of cutoff is February 3rd to actually ask questions and to preview, that we could preview a couple of ideas with them. And it doesn't, if we preview ideas, it doesn't preclude us from changing our minds, because the request for proposals doesn't come out till sometime in March, and applications aren't due until May. So there's a big gap in time between this previewing of what we might want to do and when the actual applications themselves are available to the community. But obviously we want to take advantage of this opportunity. And so at the last meeting, the Energy Committee and the spoke, and Miriam on behalf of the Conservation Commission submitted some items to the select board, some suggestions as to what we might want to apply for, and should we preview with the MVP staff. Maybe I can just give Michael, do you have a quorum yet?
No, but I can talk.
Okay, all right. So the ECAC had come forth with 4 recommendations, and I know, yes. You didn't have any further, you submitted those to us. Was there any further discussion to prioritize those 4?
No, we met at 7 after your meeting last week, and basically went through the 3 priority areas that ECAC had identified previously. So stormwater, solar, and invasive species. And we didn't articulate this per se, but we ended up picking at least 1 from each of those 3 categories, as you'll see, and there's 2 under stormwater. So, we were cognizant that 1, it's a select board decision. Number 2, there's other people and other committees who might have ideas. So we sort of didn't want to muddy the waters. I think, the attempt was, we were aware of, what MVP might think is good, that is, I don't know if it was you or Becky last time said project. So we sort of knew that. And I think any of these we'd be good with. Some of them are very different. So the culvert assessment is something that would be potentially high cost and give us information. And, it's an assessment. So whether that's a project or not, looking at the rain gardens, those are real life, do something projects in the ground, also dealing with stormwater, but a very different approach. The benefit there is that they are nature-based solutions, which MVP, says that they really want, and I think are consistent with Shutesbury values. The invasive species, part of what we looked at and we discussed was there's information gathering and plans, which we think would help us. And it's just a matter of, is that enough of a thing that MVP would want to buy? So I think it's unfortunately something for the select board to grapple with, and we can chime in. But we tried to identify things that we needed. without going too much into the, like, they're never going to fund this category. So we thought, we thought they could buy a plan in 2 cases. And then, what the assessment for solar and the assessment for culverts, those are the first steps towards actually doing stuff. So with the solar, the idea there would be that we'd want either the town to have 100% solar on all its town-owned buildings, so the 5 main buildings, or in net have the town getting its energy from solar. Because according to what Graham had identified, I guess we put in either $10,000 or $12,000 in the budget for electricity. And so if we increase solar and our net metering increase, then we can drive it down to 0. So there's different approaches, but it all starts with assessment. So I think it's for you all to grapple with, and I think we could chime in, but Miriam and Gail can speak as well, if that's helpful. No takers, Miriam and Gail?
Miriam, Gail, go ahead.
I think it would be very useful if we could have access and authorization to actually monitor the production meters at the fire department and town hall. Then we'd know what we're actually talking about. Because the municipal buildings are net metered, we know only the difference between the use and what we are producing by solar, but we do not know what the solar production is. If we knew that, we would have a better handle. If we knew the actual production, we would have a better handle on what we need to get to 100% solar support of the 5 buildings as a group. At this point, we're simply gauging 10 kilowatt at one place, 15 kilowatt capacity at another, without knowing what the actual production is. So I guess I would make a request that we be given access for once a month monitoring of those meters.
That's sort of a different subject, but it's a good point. So duly noted. Miriam, do you have any comments vis-a-vis what the Energy Committee did and what the overlap is with the Conservation Commission, the 2 items that the Conservation Commission submitted?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of wear my Concom hat. So I think that, and I think that, we would like to see the town be able, kind of prioritize these issues, even if it isn't through MVP. There are other grants and other avenues, so it doesn't have to be an either or. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is how useful a culvert assessment would be for the town, and I talked with you about it before, but I think that we think that would be extremely helpful to the highway department. It would be helpful to the town with future grant writing for culvert replacements. It would position the town in a helpful way. We also, think that a proposal for looking at stormwater engineering around the lake is a top priority. And I know that that's fraught with many complications because of the private versus public road issues, but the lake belongs to all of us. And we have year-round residents around the lake whose wells and properties and drinking water get impacted. So that's another area that I think we see as being a priority. And then the third bucket has to do with dams and particularly the Lake Wyola Dam that needs some repairs, and MVP would not be a viable option for that because dam repairs are not eligible, but there are grants that are.
And it's CPA eligible.
It is CPA. I didn't know that.
It's a historic structure.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's no kidding. I guess I thought about that at one point. The other thing I would just say is, I'm blocking on it now. For a culvert assessment, somebody shared with me that there is another grant source besides MVP, the Compact Communities program with the state. Do we participate in that, Becky?
We haven't yet, but that's one of the things that was listed on the DLTA. There is a waiting list. to get involved. We had signed up. I know the highway and was working with Walter to get signed up to get the culvert assessment done, but they didn't get the funding for a couple of years on it, and now the funding is back. So I think we want to jump on the waiting list.
Yeah. And look at other resources, because I think it would be, you know, it's been on everybody's to-do list for a long time.
Rita, can I add one other thing?
Sure.
It's not sort of, well, it's just a little background on the invasive one, because I think it's sort of interesting just as we're thinking about climate. And, you know, there were 3 people in that working group had a conversation, and I just, for benefit of the select board and just the town, what was really interesting in their conversations is, you know, if you think about invasive species, you think about knotwood, for example, and, you know, things that are traditionally seen as that. And what they were discussing was really, as I wrote down, this continuum, you know, that in a changing climate, things are going to be migrating north. And so things that are not necessarily native to Shutesbury will start coming in and trying to figure out, well, are they harmful or they're not harmful, even if they're not native? And so I think I only mentioned it because I think it's sort of an interesting lens to look at a lot of this stuff, that as things are changing in an ecosystem, you know, the water stuff is apparent, you know, we're going to get less of it and more of it. But there might be other changes that just the way we traditionally look at these things might be shifting. So I just wanted to call it out because I thought it was a really different way of looking at a lot of what we're going to be experiencing.
Okay.
It doesn't help with the decision making, I grant you.
Gail, before I take your question, I just wanted to see if Melissa or Eric had any questions or observations about any of them.
One observation I would make is that the whole notion of, my understanding is that the notion of doing any kind of stormwater survey around the lake is MVP eligible. And that if that's true, many grants and many kinds of surveys around the lake, because of the ownership and all that, are not eligible. So I mean, it seems to me that if they are eligible, and if we think there's any chance that's going to work as a program to advocate for, I would just throw that out there. That's all. I think it's a good idea to do that.
Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Michael's, an advantage to the approach for the invasives is that this would become a regional asset or template, because the whole area of here in the hill towns and in the valley, the biota is going to be changing with climate change. And there's going to be a new definition of what is invasive. So that this would be innovative in a way that would be applicable to other communities, and a regional application that might have some merit in terms of MVPs looking at it.
Do we have any sense of whether or not any of our neighbors are thinking about this, about the invasive species?
I don't recall it was Zoe and Nate and I think Leslie were part of that conversation. I don't particularly remember them talking about other towns, unfortunately. I get the impression that this might be a new thing, but
easy enough to reach out.
Yeah.
Rita, I know when we were addressing knotweed, I called a number of our neighboring towns, and nobody else was addressing it. Not even Montague.
Not even Montague, that where it's like, if you go through North Leverett into Montague, it's like knotweed city.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. All along that whole stream there, whatever that is. Yeah, it's pretty. Okay, so you're gonna make us do this now, because
that's where you get the big bucks, right?
Yeah, the big bucks.
Rita?
Yeah.
But that could be part of the project, that we involve the surrounding neighbors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if that's the direction we're gonna go in, it's right. Engaging. Although a joint application would make much more sense, but
yeah. I guess, Rita, to help you guys, I mean, the way I see it, you know, the culvert assessment is something that we're dealing with now. So that's a current problem. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it will get worse, but there's current issues right now. So if that's one way to look at that. The rain gardens, there's current flooding now, but, you know, we pointed out with the new library, that's a place to put one. So it's sort of a little anticipatory, but not much. So it could address current problems and then a little bit of forward thinking. The invasive species, I don't think there's a good sense of what the extent of it, you know, so it really is sort of investigative. We don't have something staring us in the face saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. But we just know it's important. And then the thing about solar, we talked about, Graham had a very good lens on this, which is there's addressing the problem so it's not getting worse, i.e. stop burning fossil fuels. And then there's resilience. And his point when we were discussing it is we're going to have to be doing resilience and mitigation for 10, 20, 30 years as things change. That's ongoing. But to get ahead of it and contribute to stop making the problem worse, you would want to move towards non-fossil fuel generation as a, you know, you shouldn't do either or, it's not an either or, but in terms of thinking about, you know, current problems versus other, it's not like a culvert that's staring you in the face problem, but we're contributing to the problem by continuing to have some facilities burning fossil fuels. So, and I don't know if that's a helpful lens for those four, but.
What would be helpful is if we had a project.
Yeah. I return to that's why you get the big bucks.
That would make our life much simpler. You know, again, we, you know, this is our opportunity to preview a couple of things, and it doesn't mean that we can't change our minds. You know, we're going to ask the MVP staff person, what do you think? And then when the RFP comes out, we're going to get to actually make the hard decisions about what exactly a hard decision, what is our top priority. But, you know, for me, having been through this now just once, and I didn't even do the grant writing, Becky and Michael did. I just want to take make the most of this opportunity to kind of get feedback, and also show them that we heard what they had to say. Is like have a project. So one of my thoughts around the culvert assessment was, you know, we've heard about dams. Well, we're taking care of the culvert at the you know, at the Lake Wyola Dam, but we do have another dam which we talked briefly about last week, at Brown's Pond, and there's a culvert there. That's something that's going to come up. I'm wondering if we couldn't kind of weave that into a culvert assessment, is looking at that specific culvert and then talk more broadly about other culverts at the same time, because that's a specific project. We know it's going to have to get dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, following up on Eric's point about Lake Wyola, and I think Mira mentioned it, I don't think the ECAC would feel like, oh, we put these forth and they went on some, you know, pick something else. You know, Lake Wyola is about stormwater, and one of the priorities is stormwater. So, I mean, Eric's point about if this is the only or the best funding source for it, and MVP thought it was good and it was project enough, we're still addressing a priority area. So I guess I would say it's not really the four that we presented versus the three that Concom. You know, if there's something that has more winnability, anything the Concom addresses is going to deal with water.
Right.
The only other thing about that Lake Wyola project is
we're talking stormwater now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, would that kind of assessment in any way conflict with? We've sort of got a thing working with FERCog there now that hasn't happened.
Right.
Is there a conflict there? That's all I'm saying.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, yes.
So the FERCog watershed plan is not an engineering study per se. It's kind of an assessment that would be a preamble to another application cycle for an action grant, Eric. So the problem with the DEP action grants is that if this FERCog watershed analysis is done sometime this year, it remains to be seen whether even next year there would be enough time to actually apply for anything. So now we're talking about possibly applying in 2025. You know, it's far off. And I think, you know, my suggestion is really let's keep trying to get funding in the meantime. You know, don't take anything off the table. Try everything.
But in both cases, my point would be in both cases, we'd have to do some sort of analysis of what the situation is there, right? I mean, doesn't that have to happen?
Well, what I would...
Miriam, can you do it through the chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought he was asking me. Yes.
Go ahead, Miriam.
To respond, Eric, yes, we do. I guess the question is, do we have enough information available to us in order to make a competitive grant? And my suggestion would be looking at the 2007 engineering report from the DCR, from Scott Campbell, looking at the work that was done around the culvert replacement, and the preliminary work that already was done for the watershed analysis, and whether there's enough information. We don't have the full watershed analysis completed, but for example, we probably could develop something that's focused just on the west side of the lake, where there has already been some engineering done, without having the whole watershed analysis. So that would be my suggestion, is look at the west side of the lake. Thanks.
Michael, go ahead.
I was just going to call ECAC to order because I saw Leslie showed up. So call us to order at 7:21. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we were to do something, if one of the items was stormwater engineering at Lake Wyola, what does that look like? I'm not an engineer. I have no idea what we're talking about. Is it looking at roads and where water runs off, and is it's an engineering study that then is a plan for how to address runoff?
I guess.
Answer, Miriam. No, go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to jump in and say that it probably would identify the sources of the water, and like you said, where it naturally flows, and then an engineering plan to solve it, or identify maybe options for that. But I would imagine it would, you know, the sources, what's causing it to run off in those areas would be part of that as well.
And we did have some discussion, Michael and Becky, you might recall, about where town roads intersect and what happens with runoff from town roads into the private roads around Lake Wyola.
And it is it's a natural bowl because the lake was created because of the runoff. So, you know, now there's houses.
Right.
Great.
Go ahead, Miriam.
Thanks. I think that it would be possible without too much expense to come up with an action plan application for work to improve the stormwater in one area. And my suggestion would be to look at Locks Pond Road, would be the easiest lift. Locks Pond Road is a town-owned road. There is a collapsing cracked culvert just uphill of where Lake Drive and Locks Pond Road intersect. And it's a funky stormwater system where there's like a buried old rusting undersized pipe that is going along the right of way all the way up the hill. We haven't been able to figure out where the inlet to it is, but it's up the hill quite a ways. Certainly it's rusting and it's aged and needs to be replaced, and it's running straight into the lake. So there needs to be a way to intercept the storm water besides just funneling all the runoff into the lake. So that strikes me as being like an easy kind of defined area, not easy, but a defined area where work needs to be done. There might be more culverts that need to be replaced along that stretch. I know that MVP likes to replace culverts. So in order to get a viable application, you might need to get some information from a consulting engineer. That might not be that difficult to get some guidance for the application. But that might be one, since we're already replacing the large culvert under the Sawmill River, this would be kind of addressing the runoff that hits that culvert, because there's runoff coming down that hill.
Michael?
Yeah, my only observation, I think, Rita, when you're talking about last year's failed effort with dirt roads, I think I'm taking off my ECAC hat and put on my writer of MVP's last year's grant. That I think maybe part of the critique was that we were looking for something that was broad for all the town's dirt roads. And so if we're focusing on the area around Lake Wyola, that might be more focused. I think it's, if nothing else, it's worth trying to get their feedback on. Like we shrunk our scope. Does this work?
Right, right. So that seems to me anyway, to make sense how it gets framed for the discussion with the MVP staff. We need to think about a little bit. So there's one. Eric, Melissa, are you in agreement that we would do that?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Have that as one of our two.
I think so.
Okay. All right, one down. So the second, so I hear a nomination for what the second proposal might be.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what the, well, I guess from ECAC, but what are we suggesting with regard to solar, the 100% town building solar program? What are you suggesting how would that grant look? What would we be looking for?
So why don't I try, and then what I missed, Gail can fill in on. So we identified five town buildings. So fire department, highway, town hall, school, and what did I miss?
Library.
New
library.
Yes, the future library. And so the idea would be for the town of Shutesbury, for those 5 buildings, it could be discussed, but there's either 2 goals, Eric. One is to say each of those 5 buildings should have as much solar as possible. And so what's possible depends on the building, and we don't have an assessment. So at least from the informal conversation at ECAC, the sense is the school has the least probability given limitations. The library, it's, I think, built into the plan, so that's a high probability. And then the town hall has already got some solar, but it would have to maximize solar. And so the highway department and the fire department, those are like, we don't know what that looks like, but it's something in the middle between the school and town hall. And so the idea would be put as much solar as you can on those, either on the roofs or pole mounted. That's one objective. The other objective would be just to say, as a town for Shutesbury, we're generating all of our municipal electricity through solar, meaning that the net metering would gain us enough addition that we wouldn't be paying any money out the door through the annual town budget for electricity. The net metering would basically zero us out. So those are 2 goals. The issue is with either of those, you don't know how to approach it because you don't know how much each of those 5 buildings can really support. For example, Graham had talked about, you could probably run, I think he said, I forget what we needed, but you could probably run additional electric poles down part of the field behind Town Hall, you know, and that might get Town Hall to 100%. On the other extreme, the library, I mean, the school has got so many limitations between trees and safety and blah, blah, blah. Maybe, I don't even know if we would get 10%. So that's what we're trying to figure out. Gail, how'd I do?
Fine.
Okay, that makes sense, Eric?
Well, yeah, but I mean, so would the grant be to, well, if obviously to analyze what's possible, but also would it also include building that, or is it just to analyze what's possible?
Just analyze what's possible. And I think that would set us up for it's either setting up for another action grant. Presumably there'll be some additional money through federal infrastructure tunnel through the state for building out solar. So if we had the assessment, we knew what we were shooting for, we could then turn around and apply for it. And, you know, depending on where the town's at, we could build something into the annual town budget. But right now we don't know what we're shooting for or how much it would cost.
Okay.
Gail, go ahead.
The problem is that each of the 5 sites has a whole different set of limitations and that have to be dealt with. So it's not just a matter of going out and checking the land available or a roof available. Each of the sites has a whole set of constraints that are different from the others. And it takes somebody with know-how of installation of solar, either roof or ground, to determine what is possible and what is plausible. Those are 2 different things.
I mean, I think that we should be looking at that, however we do it, we should look at that, make that a reality as much as possible to do the solar thing 100% for the town buildings. So I personally think that would be something we should do.
Melissa?
Yeah, I'm working in that direction and I think it's a good idea. So I'm on board.
We have idea number 2.
I think so. Feels like it.
Okay.
Feels good to me.
Okay.
We're going to send in your paychecks tonight.
Yeah, right.
Right. All right. So why don't we proceed with that? Michael, can I volunteer you to have the discussion with Andrew from MVP with Becky?
Sure, if we can schedule it. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I think I don't know if you want to include Miriam for the culvert stuff. She's definitely better versed than me in that part.
I think 2 people. I think it should just be 2.
I'll do it with Becky.
Well, it's going to be sort of stormwater.
Yeah, and solar. I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with the solar, we want to sort of end up with a knowledge of what we have to do. I mean, it seems to me, what do I know about it? But it seems to me like Lot 032, among its other problems, might well be the fact that like it's more or less a denuded piece of land that's already been destroyed by the topsoil being stripped off that faces south. I mean, I think it does, doesn't it? Isn't there southern face there? Seems to me there's a real potential. What do I know? But it seems to me there's a real potential to do something there.
Yeah, there is.
I'll join Becky. That's totally fine.
Becky, that work?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right, great. So that will happen, if possible, by Friday, if not by February 3rd. All right. Done. Thank you, guys.
I have to do my ECAC business. Sorry. Hey, Leslie and Miriam, can you just show your face and give a thumbs up so we can adjourn? Someone can move to adjourn. Miriam, you want to move to adjourn?
Yes.
Gail, you want a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? I saw
Aye.
thumbs, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Becky, the library building committee is meeting right now. Is that correct? Okay.
It appears they're hot and heavy in discussion.
They are? How much
Good.
longer do we have to wait on them? Did they say?
But it could go to the 45, 10 more minutes.
Okay. Do you want to take a break? A 10-minute break, and then because really we are looking for their recommendation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do
right.
have the sign ready if you want to use it.
Yeah. So what time is it now? It's 7:34. Let's take a 10-minute break. Everybody can stretch, go take a couple of bites of dinner, and and we will be back here in 10 minutes.
All right, I'll share my screen so Becky, it's up there.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see this. No, it'd be great.
So now just everybody mute yourself.
Can you see it? Because I can't see.
I love it. It's great.
Okay.
Looks great.
All right. Yes, remember.
Thanks, Melissa. Everybody should mute themselves and block out your screen unless you want to.
Your video.
Yeah, video. Yep. Becky, are you there? Geneva, can you check, let's see if, is Becky there? Are you in the town hall?
I'm not in the office.
Oh, okay. Becky, do you want to check in with the building committee and see how they're doing?
I did.
Yeah.
I'll do it again.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else have like a gazillion marketing calls today? Are you guys, do you have a landline, Eric? Still? I had so many calls today. It was like 5 an hour. I mean, it was absurd.
Yeah, we had them at work too. It was awful.
Today was just, it was unbelievable. Even through this meeting, they were calling. I did send Gail an email, just ask her, and she said to get in touch with the South Hadley light folks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, because it's a new method. So before it was landline.
Right. And before, you know, I think Crocker was doing some sort of screening. And I never had this many calls.
Yeah, we had it was odd at work. We're in a field site, right? And no one has the phone numbers. They're not even landlines. They're literally through the internet. We attach them to our laptops basically. And
and they were calling.
Yep.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Did you buy anything? Get any deals on stuff or whatever?
I've been ordering a lot through the on my phone. Yeah. I had no idea what it was.
Wonder if something happened. Wonder if some law went into effect or expired. You know how they used to have the do not call list?
Yeah, well, I did. You know, I checked the do not call registry today just to see, and I was still registered.
Okay.
And then I mentioned it. I said that to Gail, and I can't remember what she said. She said the do not call registry wouldn't screen out these calls.
Right.
So they're going around it.
Yeah.
No, right. Crocker did have some sort of technology.
They did. Yeah. And I was just wondering.
Stopped it.
Yeah, whether or not South Hadley had it.
And my phone will announce, like my landline will announce who the call's from. And sometimes it'll say like robocall from and some number. So it's like robocall, you know, you're not going to answer that one.
Well, I know mine always says Hatfield. It says the town. It'll say Hatfield or Milford or, you know, whatever. But it was just the sheer number today that was really absurd.
Yeah, we have a joke in my family. Oh my gosh, the whole state of Illinois is calling. It'll say Illinois. What do we do without all those fun phone calls?
So Rita, the one thought I have, and it got crossed over, I was asking if their conversation is going round and round.
Oh, okay. Could we join?
It's an executive session.
So there, because it's negotiating contract?
Mm-hmm. So They would have to invite you. I'm wondering if that would just throw them over the edge at this point, or if it would be helpful.
For us to join their executive session?
Yeah.
How does that work? Do we have to go into executive session?
No, you'd have to join their meeting and they'd have to let you in. So the thought the other thought is if we scheduled a meeting for a Friday afternoon, if they do reach a conclusion, then we could get voted then, or Friday at noon or something. And if we don't reach a conclusion, then we cancel the meeting.
Yeah, they're not up against any deadline, right?
No,
I mean,
we don't have a solid deadline. It's just they need
just wanted to move ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to sit around a whole lot longer.
No. This first bite of dinner tasted really good. I'd like to go back to that. This is a violation of the Stalker doctrine. I would just point that out.
I know it is. I know it is. I'm very aware of that, Eric. So
I know. I'm keeping track.
I know. You're keeping score. So Becky, why don't you propose to them? I guess that's two.
That we meet noon on Friday, that the select board meet at noon on Friday. If they've reached a decision, they can vote it then.
Okay.
And if there's no and if not, you don't have to have the meeting.
Okay. So what they say.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Melissa? Does that work for you? You're at work,
Yeah, I
right?
can do. Yeah, but I can sneak and do something at noontime. That's when everybody breaks for lunch anyway.
Okay.
So
I can do it.
Even if I sneak downstairs into the car, just in case there's machinery or something.
Or to the ladies' room.
Right.
I know, right? There's not a lot of places to escape the noise of the machine. The drone of the machines, I should say.
Where are you on site, Melissa?
I'm down in Springfield by the Basketball Hall of Fame in the field office for the York Street pump station that it's a Springfield Sewer and Water Commission project. Has been going on for 4 years.
It's being constructed for 4 years?
We're in the fourth year. We're in I'm joining kind of on the end of it, but they've been in construction for about 4 years on a new pump site that will be able to handle the sewage amount of and stormwater for the city of Springfield, which has not been the case. So
is Bondi's Island there?
It pumps to Bondi's Island underneath the river.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So the pump station's on one side and it pumps into Agawam to Bondi's Island, which was a peach orchard before it was currently what it is now. And it goes under the river. So they've put in piping under the river to Bondi's, replace the piping under the river. They've drilled underneath the railroad as well. They could only go a few inches a day underneath the railroad because they couldn't shift the tracks. So it was a very slow process. Yep.
Talk about an engineering feat, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing. I have to say, and I'm on the back end of it, so I can't imagine how all of some of that construction pieces were falling into place, and then there's the river, and the river is basically, you're at the mercy of the river because it's got its own mind. So right now it's very high. It's been, during the summer it was low. The barges were hitting when they were moving the earth to put the pipes in. So yeah, there's I don't know how much information you want, but there's a excavator on a barge, and it's completely, the guy operating it cannot see what he's doing. So it's completely done by computer and completely done by like sonar and GPS and all of that.
Wow.
So while he's floating in the river.
I always think about that, you know, those tunnels in New York when I go to New York, and like going through those, you know, 2 mile, 3 mile long tunnels, and like how they ever got built and how they don't leak too.
Right. Well, exactly. Like as they're doing some of this, they have to have the pipes pressurized to keep the water out, you know, and when I was in Alaska, I went through a 2 mile tunnel through a mountain one way. It was one way. So you could only go one way traffic. And then that traffic would stop, you go the other way. And as Chris and I are going through it, I'm like, this is amazing. How did they get this tunnel through this mountain, you know, without the whole thing falling down?
Blasting. Yeah.
And very slow, like very slow digging in structure, you know, building, and
that's nothing collapses. Yeah.
Modern marvels. That's for sure.
Yeah. I remember during the big dig, they had all the railroad track thing going into South Station, which is the big station, you know, it's a South Station in Boston. They had to freeze the ground so the track wouldn't, you know, and they had to figure out how to freeze the ground. And then they dug underneath that frozen ground. They put the big dig or whatever under that. So yes, things can get very crazy.
And very expensive. You see why it's so expensive. Yeah.
Exactly. And why little things that pop up can add a huge expense, you know, because that may cause 10, 15 other things to have to be shifted too. So.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Becky?
Elaine told me to give her 2 minutes.
Okay. 2 minutes they're going to be ready? Or 2 minutes she's going to have an answer for us?
Hopefully something.
One or the other.
Right.
Did she say which 2 minutes to give her? Well, wait half an hour and then give me 2 minutes.
So here goes another call. This is name unavailable. Yeah, this is so nuts.
Yeah, I have a rule. If they phone rings and they can't leave a message, they don't get a call back. If it's someone I don't know, you know. Oh.
Now this has been all day long.
No, we have a landline. I'm not frankly sure why we have it, but we do.
No, I know.
And
because if the power goes out, if you lose your internet,
you know, there are
then
times
you don't
it's
have
useful.
Yeah.
And every once in a while something will happen and the cell phones won't work. And it's in a snowstorm. Like we're sort of on that Verizon line down here, where like if there's a snowstorm or whatever, you know, so. But we have a message on the phone that says, don't leave any messages here because we won't listen to it. And we don't. This thing has 41 messages on it. I'm looking right now. So it's 41 or calls rather, missed calls. And new voicemail. Someone did leave a voicemail here, even though the message says.
Well, sometimes those robocalls that you get, they'll actually leave a message.
Because they last through the message you have.
Right.
Yeah, we have a landline too, just because.
I don't know. It's sort of old fashioned, I guess. I kept it.
Yeah, no, and they're pretty cheap.
Thanks to the internet. It's what, like $10 a month. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I just, you know, it felt like you're right. It's sometimes a cell state. This week I've had to, with my cell phone, texts haven't come through, and my sister's cell phone sent me texts that are months old.
Yeah, you know, that's happened to me too, where texts just don't go through.
Well, one thing that has happened is AT&T works in town now in a big way, right? AT&T.
I guess that they're on the tower, right, Becky?
Yeah.
The new tower.
All around the lake.
Oh, all around the lake, really?
And
everywhere, the whole town. I mean, Kristen was telling me today.
AT&T.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I mean,
well, yeah, but even if you have a Verizon phone, you can still use the AT&T cell signal. It still lets you.
It does it?
It does. Yeah, it does.
It's not enough though. I'm not getting it.
Yeah, I mean, I was down at the lake today.
Yeah, you didn't get it?
And my my phone, I've never had this before. It actually said where the things that gives you the bars and all that, it said SOS. I don't know, SOS. What's that mean?
You're in real trouble, Eric. You didn't even know it.
There is something in your phone along with along the cell signal thing where you can choose which one you want it to do.
Really? Which provider? Oh.
Yeah. I'd have to find it because
we had this break. Eric, you're being at the lake reminds me. Will you have a report to us soon on the lake study? And maybe that could be put on a future agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we have a meeting the 25th, the committee. We had a site visit today at the lake, which I glad to tell you about, but we weren't meeting, wasn't an official meeting.
Right, I see.
So in theory, we're going to have a meeting on the 25th that we'll take that site visit into consideration when we make policy recommendations or whatever. And maybe the appropriate thing would be to have a report right after that.
Or an update. Yeah.
So I could sort of tell you what was going on. The bottom line is whatever we decide, I think is going to be, I can tell you this, I can tell you that it'll be like, we're going to have, Mary David had a great name. What's the, she had a great expression on the sign. Well, basically, it's like, you can't come in here. That's what it said. I mean, no user access.
Limiting access.
Limiting access. No access. I can't remember how she described it, what she phrased it as, but that's going to bother somebody, I'm sure. I'm sure that's what we will decide as a group. I know that since everybody there seemed to agree with it. We've talked about it before. Exactly how to do that is going to be a little unclear, and how to enforce it and all that. Some of it's going to be, I think, a little bit. The other thing I can say is it looks to me like some of it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. That is to say, we're trying to keep the cost low and use chains and not fences and stuff like that. Just chain across the driveway and all that. And then it'll be like, do people actually not go there because there's a sign that says no access and here's a chain saying you can't go here? And if that doesn't work, we'll have to look at it, I guess, in the future. I think that's what we're deciding, talking about today.
Okay. So Melissa, I won't be at the next meeting, so will you chair?
Sure. Yeah. That's on
Becky.
What does
30? It's on the 31st.
Okay.
What did you say, Becky?
Time to adjourn.
Okay. All right. All right. So do I hear a motion to adjourn? And
yes. So moved.
So moved. Second. All that stuff.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Errol, aye. Nice talking with you guys.
Nice talking,
right.
everybody.
And we're posting
all right,
a meeting
Becky,
for
let us
noon
know.
On Friday, right? Noon on Friday?
I'm
or
not
or
sure
will
yet.
you know?
I'll just confirm. Send me a text or something, Becky.
Okay, right now it doesn't look like it, but I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
all right.
But it's okay for noon on Friday if that's what we need to do.
That'll work. Yep.
And we'll have Geneva hostage in the office. So
that's right.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thanks. All right.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.